This evening's federal all-candidates debate here at Nickel Belt Riding. I'm Karen Hordavenko, and I'm the chair of the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce and your moderator for this evening. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Sudbury Real Estate Board for their partnership on this event, and to Hot 93.5 and Rewind 103.5 for the support as well. Thank you as well to Northern Life for live streaming this event and making it possible for those who could not attend to be able to attend it from their home. We hope tonight's event will help you decide on how to cast your ballot for the MP candidate for Nickel Belt. Remember, the final word is yours. We strongly urge you to have your say and vote on October the 19th. I would also like to remind the audience to please keep vocalizations appropriate and to be respectful of the event's proceedings. Unruly behavior, swearing, or loud noises will not be tolerated, and members of the audience may be asked to leave. We also ask that you remain seated during the event as to cause least disturbance to the other audience members. We also remind the candidates to be respectful to each other, as well as the audience, not to speak unless prompted by the moderator. To not interrupt candidates during their allotted time, do not propagate hateful or discriminatory messages, and to refrain from swearing. And now let's begin by introducing the candidates and panelists and outlining the rules for procedures this evening. The federal candidates sitting in alphabetical order: Mr. Claude Gravel from the Democratic Party in the end. Welcome. Ms. Aino Laminin from the Conservative Party of Canada. Welcome. Mr. Stuart McCall, Green Party of Canada. Welcome. And Mr. Marc Saudet, Liberal Party of Canada. Welcome.
That's right. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Dave Starbuck for the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, unfortunately, is not able to be here tonight. He's home with the flu, so he wanted us to pass on his regrets, and also for you to have a wonderful evening tonight listening to the debate. With respect to the panel, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Paul Comacchio from Comacchio Diversified, Mr. Michael McNamara, Second Vice Chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and Laura Conrad Trub, Scott, and Hertebis, and Caroline McDonald from the President-elect at Sudbury Real Estate Board. Welcome. Also assisting me tonight is our timekeeper, Charlene Sissons, and our floor moderators, Julie Donich and Lauren Payet. Where are you girls at the back? The candidates have been briefed on the rules of the proceedings for tonight's discussion, but I will outline them briefly for the audience. Each candidate will be invited in alphabetical order to address the Assembly for 2 minutes on any topic of their choice. The timekeeper will sound the bell at 1.5 minute mark to indicate 30 seconds left in each candidate's time period. The microphone will be disconnected at the 2 minute mark. Charlene will demonstrate what the bell sounds like for the 30-second time limit. And the final bell sound will sound like this. Great job, Charlene. Following the opening remarks, the panelists will pose a total of 3 questions to be answered by each of the candidates. These questions will concern federal issues of importance to the business community, and the candidates will have a maximum of 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. The timekeeper will sound the bell indicating 30 seconds left in the time period, and the microphone will be disconnected after the 1.5 minutes. Each question will also be open to a 5-minute debate following the all candidates' response. Following the panelists' questions, a public question period will be held where questions addressing the specific candidates will be posed. Any members of the audience wishing to have their questions asked, please raise your hand and a floor monitor will bring you a question sheet. Questions can be asked in both French and English, The questions will be reviewed and posed to the identified candidate. Please identify only one candidate that you would like to pose the question to. For these questions, the intended candidate will have a maximum of 1 minute to reply. The timekeeper will sound the bell indicating 15 seconds left in the time period. Following the opening questioning period, each candidate in reverse alphabetical order will have the opportunity for a final 2-minute summation. The timekeeper will ring the bell indicating 30 seconds remaining in that time period. The microphone will be disconnected after 2 minutes. Those are the rules that will be followed this evening. Now let's begin the night by calling on the candidates, beginning in alphabetical order, for their introductory remarks. And prior to that, just one housekeeping. If you could turn your phones to silence, just in respect to the event, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Gravel, your opening statements, please.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Ça me fait un grand plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui chez nous à Chelmsford. It certainly is a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I am a proud member of the Sudbury Chamber of Commerce as well as the member of the West Nipissing Chamber of Commerce, so it gives me great pleasure being here tonight. I will discuss the issues shortly, but first I want to tell you a little bit about myself. The North defines who I am. I was born at Vermilion Lake, and I grew up on a farm in Vermilion Lake, doing chores on a farm as we grew up. I worked summer jobs, picking tobacco, probably the hardest job I've ever done, working for the CP Rail on what was called at the time the Extra Gang, and on construction. After that, I spent 34 years at INCO, but I didn't let retirement slow me down. In 1974, I married that beautiful young lady there at the front, and come next week, we will be celebrating our 31st wedding anniversary. We have two children. Michelle, who is a business owner in Revelstoke and was just recently honored by his Chamber of Commerce, and my daughter Joanne, who is the language director in Vancouver. I still live in Chelmsford. My working values came from my parents, who worked very, very hard on a farm. It's not easy living off a farm in those days, so that's where I got my work values. Since 2011, my team and I in Valcarron and Sturgeon Falls, we've processed over 8,000 passports, and we've dealt with 5,000 constituency cases on EI, CPP, OAS, Canada Revenue, and many other issues. I've held over 100 community clinics, some passports clinics from Foliettes to Killarney to Sturgeon Falls, and I've been in contact with all of the municipal leaders, the First Nations.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. 2 minutes. 2 minutes goes very fast when you're speaking. Ms. Aino Lamlin.
Thank you to the Am Testing. Testing.
Yeah.
Thank you to the Chamber and you ladies and gentlemen for being here tonight. My name is Aino Ramanen, and I want to bring change to Nickelbelt. I immigrated to Canada, one of 10 children, at the age of 10 from Finland. I worked from an early age to support myself and to put myself through night school. I have business ownership and accounting experience. I bring skills learned in volunteering in various activities that my 4 children participated in. I've also volunteered with the arts community Big Sisters organization, Elgin Street Mission, Finlandia Village, Sudbury Soil Study. I help care for my 94-year-old mother who's still living in her own home. The TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was announced today, represents a 12-nation market of 800 million consumers with a gross domestic product of $28 trillion, 14 times the size of the Canadian economy. Canada will now be the only G7 nation with free trade access to all of the U.S., the Americas, Europe, and Asia, Pacific continents that represent 60% of the world's economy. The TPP will improve market access for Ontario's world-class companies. Will include construction, transportation, research and development, legal, engineering and architectural services, computer services, environmental services, as well as energy distribution and mining services. In Nickel Belt, we have companies that supply and service the mining sector that are the envy of the world. TPP means more jobs for Nickel Belt because it removes tariffs on exports such as steel, nickel, and industrial machinery. This will directly benefit companies as well as their employees. Since 2006, through FedNor's Northern Ontario Development Program, the Conservative government has invested $351 million in the North. In October of 2014, the Honourable Greg Rickford, Minister responsible for FedNor, announced $960,000 to enable partners to support community economic development. I have 11 pages of examples of Northern Ontario groups that have received funds.
Thank you, Ms. Lebanon. Mr. Stuart McCall, your opening statements, please.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to this event. I appreciate all the efforts that go into organizing events like this, and I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting this event on. It's a great opportunity to express my opinions with the Green Party. So good evening, everyone. Bonsoir, Anne. I'm currently a local organic farmer in Garson and have been selling fresh, local, ecologically grown, safe, and nutritious food to our population for 16 years. I have also installed a 10-kilowatt solar power generation facility at the farm to help reduce my dependence on fossil fuels and reduce my environmental footprint. In conjunction with this endeavor, and prior to entering the farming profession, I worked for 32 years in chemical engineering research and development in both the mining and petroleum sectors. I was born in South Porcupine, near Timmins, and I've lived most of my life in Northern Ontario. I am a hard-working, honest, straight-shooting person. I call things as I see them. My involvement in community service is extensive. I am a voting member of the Greater City of Sudbury Food Policy Council, representing rural agriculture, and hold board positions with the Sudbury Horticultural Society, Eat Local Sudbury, a food cooperative. I am also involved with the Garson Falconbridge Community Action Network and coordinating the development of the newest and very successful community garden in Garson. Thank you very much. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Mr. Marc-Sade, for your opening statements, please.
Merci, thank you. Also, I'd like to thank everyone. Merci beaucoup d'avoir venu ici ce soir pour le débat de la Chambre de commerce. C'est un plaisir d'être ici, où je suis né, ici à Chelmsford, et on regarde le débat ici pour la région de Nickel Belt. I'm proud to be part of the Liberal team, and I'm ready to rise to the challenge. Harper's plan has failed. Let's be strategic and send Harper packing. Montclair has no answers on the economy, is irresponsibly supporting Mr. Harper's plan to give millionaires more dollars, and is also willing to cut billions in public investment, and has already broken his promises on important issues like child care and home care. We will grow the middle class by raising taxes to the wealthiest 1%, cutting taxes to the middle class Canadians. That's real change, and real change is needed now, not in years from now. The Liberals have a strong plan to immediately invest to create jobs with the most significant infrastructure investment in Canadian history: public transit, roads, bridges, retirement security, environment, home care, social housing, training, innovation. The economy must grow, and it'll create well-paying jobs for the middle class. Liberals have a strong plan and is ready to offer better governance in Ottawa. My team is working hard and will continue sharing the Liberal plan for real change across all of Nickel Belt. Only in this election, Canadians have a choice between investment for creating jobs and growth, or cuts by the two other parties that will hurt the economy. Liberals know that better is possible, and we will work together to build a better country and a better nickel belt. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Sade. Thank you very much for your introductory remarks to all the guests tonight. I now call upon tonight's panelists to begin the question period. Mr. Paul Carmacchio, please. Can we hear the first question?
Yes, thank you. Candidates, if elected, how would your party commit to advancing the development of the Ring of Fire? Si vous êtes élu, comment s'engagera votre parti pour faire avancer le développement du cercle de feu?
Thank you. We call upon the candidates in random order to respond to this question. Remember, you have 1.5 minutes to respond. We'll start with Mr. Sade. Your response, please.
Thank you for that very important question. The Ring of Fire has been stalled in the last little while. And what the Liberal Party has already committed to in Canada, we're looking, as I said earlier, the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history. That is very important to have a strong MP that has a business background, that has the expertise to work with the communities, to work with all the stakeholders, to work with First Nations. This is crucial for the economy. We have to remember, Cape Royal is the best place to have the chloride refinery. The hydro facility is already in place. The railway is already there with CN. This is an opportunity for Nickel Belt, but we need to have leadership. We need to put this on the agenda, and that's something that hasn't happened over the last 8 years. And the Ring of Fire will create more jobs, and we need that investment. The partnership with the municipalities, the partnership with the provinces is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Sade. Mr. Claude Gravel, your response, please.
Thank you, and that's a very, very good question and an important question for Sudbury. I've been up to the Ring of Fire twice already. I've brought 6 MPs up there to visit the sites. And if we, Mr. Serre said that nothing's moved in the Ring of Fire, and he's absolutely right, nothing's moved because of the lack of leadership from the Ontario Liberal Party. They seem to want to argue instead of doing something. I've been up there to visit the First Nations. I brought the mining companies, the First Nations, and the City of Sudbury to a Natural Resources Committee meeting in Toronto. And the companies were very, very clear. All the government has to do is tell them the rules. And if they know the rules, they will be able to budget for the rules so they can follow them. The First Nations were also very, very clear. They're not against the Ring of Fire. They're not against mining. They just want to be at the table. And it's so important that they are at the table along with the municipalities that are involved. And if we develop the Ring of Fire, Sudbury is known as the mining cluster. We will create hundreds of jobs for Sudbury and grow Sudbury along with the rest of Northern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Ms. Lemon, your response, please.
Yes, the Ring of Fire would be a boon for Northern Ontario, Nickel Belt as well as the rest of Ontario. The federal government has the funds ready and has agreed to work. We are waiting for the provincial government to step in and do their share.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Mr. Stuart McCall.
Yes, thank you for that really excellent question. The Ring of Fire in a rip and strip scenario would produce approximately $50 billion to Northwestern Ontario. This is a huge sum of money. The Green Party would like to see some refining capacity perhaps in Sault Ste. Marie or Thunder Bay, because we feel that we can add value to that resource by refining it and producing stainless steel, which we can export worldwide from a port. So it's absolutely necessary to be located by a port in order to make sure that resource is value added for Northern Ontario. Agreements, the first step, I guess, is to make sure we have good agreements with our Indigenous people that live there. I believe there's 4 or 5 different Indigenous groups that are surrounded or partially involved with that. So the first thing is to make sure we have an equitable agreement with the Indigenous people, and to make sure there's also a significant employment opportunities for them. The benefits for Nickel Belt would be increased business through our mining suppliers, and perhaps making railway cars either in Capreol or towards the Nipissing area.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. We will now open the question up to a 5-minute debate amongst the candidates. You are invited to question each other or challenge others' viewpoints. The debate is open.
$1 billion for the Ring of Fire over 20 years. It's amortized over 20 years, which means that if a company, a mining company, in the first year, if they need $60 billion, they can have it. If they need $70 billion in the second year, they can have it. In the third or fourth year, if they only need $5 or $6 million, they can have it. This is over 20 years. It doesn't mean that it's limited. We can certainly help all of the people in the Ring of Fire, all of the mines in the Ring of Fire. And when we finally get that money, other $1 billion from the provincial government, that'll be $2 billion that will be available to develop the Ring of Fire. And it's going to go a long way to creating jobs here in Nickel Belt, here in Sudbury, and across the north.
Mr. Gravel, we need not a plan in 20 years. We need to.
It's not a 20-year plan. You didn't hear me.
Yes.
I said it's available immediately.
We heard you.
It's available immediately.
This money is needed immediately.
It is available immediately.
In Northern Ontario.
You can have it tomorrow.
So,
The company's going to have it on October 20th.
so let's be responsible, Mr. Gravel. Let's be responsible. The Liberal Party has indicated that we'll have the largest infrastructure spent with $125 million that will start immediately.
$125 million for the Ring of Fire is a long way from $1 billion.
The NDP government is considering, or has already been on record, as indicating that they're going to balance the budget, the Harper budget. How will you invest monies if you're going to balance the books immediately?
Mark, it's going to cost at least $450 million to develop rail access to the Ring of Fire.
Correct.
So $129 million doesn't really cut it, does it?
We're promising $1 billion. $1 billion.
Well, of course.
And with the $1 billion problems, that's $2 billion. That's not scratch money. That's lots of money.
I mean, Claude, that's just $450 million just to develop rail access.
How do you figure $2 billion is $450 million?
No. I'm just talking the initial investment to get access to the property.
We're talking also about the Ring of Fire.
You need to provide power supplies. You need to provide housing. You need to provide mining camp infrastructure. And I would like to do this in a sustainable way that does not rely on the burning of fossil fuels. And this can be done with our new renewable energy technologies that are in development and already available.
Correct, Stuart. That's the
That's partnership, yeah, for sure. And you know, I think we have to work at the federal level, the provincial level, and municipal level to some extent in order to make this happen.
And that's the leadership that an MP needs to provide. The leadership that needs to sit down with provincial representatives, municipal representatives, and hash out the details. There is a lot of work to be done. There has been 8 years, 10 years of work that has already started. The First Nations with Bob Ray has come to the table, and they have made significant
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
Do this immediately.
Wouldn't it be nice to add value added to that resource? I mean, if we're looking at the estimated benefits of $50 billion, then why can't we enhance that by building or by smelting that product in Thunder Bay or in Sault Ste. Marie? There already exists a steel manufacturing company in Sault Ste. Marie, and we can export finished product and thereby increase the value or the value added price of that resource.
I understand that the building of smelters is extremely expensive, and so the cost will have to be looked at, and I believe that it's irresponsible to throw money unless you've got all the figures and every partner working together. We need the provincial government to step up, as well as have the cooperation of the First Nations.
We need absolute cooperation with the First Nations. They've clearly indicated that, the First Nations. We have to build a smelter. Hopefully it's going to be in Northern Ontario. Hopefully it'll be in Cape Real. I'm not sure where it's going to be. Cape Real has been mentioned. But we have $1 billion that's available immediately to develop the Ring of Fire. And once the Ring of Fire is developed, Sudbury, being the mining cluster of Canada, will benefit from the development of the Ring of Fire.
There's no doubt that the Ring of Fire, the smelter, should be in Cape Real. This is the best place to put that. We already have, as I said earlier, with the railway, and we have the power stations and the power grid to support that. This is very important, and Cape Real is the best place to do this. We have to look at this now. We have to look at that investment to keep our youth here.
Thank you very much. Mr. McNamara, second question, please.
This is actually a two-part question. The first part being, if elected, how will you prioritize taxes versus spending? The second part is, how important is a balanced budget to your party and paying down the debt?
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Again, the candidates will respond to this question in random order. You will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Ms. Aino Laminen, your response, please.
The Conservative government has recently just balanced the budget, so it's very important to my party to have a balanced budget. We believe in as most of you probably run your household in a very conservative fashion. You don't overspend, you don't keep borrowing, and paying down the debt. Yes, I'm concerned that our grandchildren will be saddled with a debt that's insurmountable. So both we need to balance between programs, spending on all the family programs that we've already started, and putting some money towards paying down the debt.
Thank you. Mr. Stuart McCall, your response, please.
Thanks, Mr. McNamara. It's a very good question. The Green Party has a fully costed budget plan for the future Parliament. We prefer to avoid deficits, but if there is a need to increase them slightly, then we'd be all for that. As far as balancing taxes versus spending is concerned, we are trying to be revenue neutral on this issue. The balanced budget, I think, is important. We don't really need to go into much more debt as been proposed by the Liberal Party. And how would I say, wishy-washy numbers of the Conservative Party do not add up. And I don't really understand how the NDP is possibly going to be able to afford all of the promises that they've made if they intend to have a balanced budget.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Mr. Sode, your response, please.
Thank you for the question. Basically, when we look at an economy, the size of the Canadian economy, taxes, in the first part of the question, versus spending, we have to look at where we're at today with low interest rates at historical low, with an economy that has not performed as well the last 10 years and now recently this year. The time is right to look at infrastructure investment. The time is right to kickstart the economy, to get our youth back working. By doing that, that will generate the economy, will generate purchases. We're looking at investments in the community. When we're looking at taxing the wealthiest, 1%, we're the only party that is willing to do that, and stopping giving monies to millionaires with the child credits that the two other parties proposed. It's important that we look at that infrastructure spending. The time is now, and by doing that in the next 3 years, yes, it will be a modest deficit, but it's needed to balance the economy and to kickstart it and get our youth working.
Thank you, Mr. Sere. Mr. Gravel, your response, please.
Thank you. Our budget has been costed by 4 independent, and that's very important, independent economists. And they say that our budget is balanced. We are going to balance our budget. They've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they absolutely agree that we can balance the budget. Now, we can balance the budget by increasing the corporate taxes to 17%, which is still much, much, much lower than what they are paying in the United States. Mr. Seri is right. We have to stop giving money to millionaires. How many banks do you know that need subsidies? Does Exxon need a subsidy? I don't think so. Those are all millionaires. They don't need subsidies. So that's where we're going to get our money to balance the budget. Now, our budget, we are the best at balancing budgets. And if you don't believe me, just go to the Finance Canada website and Google balanced budget. You will see with your own eyes that the NDP is the very best at balancing budgets. Tommy Douglas balanced 17 straight budgets in Saskatchewan when he took over a bankrupt province. So it can be done and it will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Thank you, candidates. We will now open the question up to a 5-minute debate amongst the candidates. You are invited to question each other or challenge each other's viewpoint. The debate is now open.
Thank you. So one of the first points that we have to look at, and when Mr. Gravel keeps referring to Thomas Douglas, Tommy, I wasn't even born, and that's been a long time ago. Yep. And there was no, when you look at NDPs on Ontario, you look at many other governments that have been in place across the country, I'm not quite sure how Mr. Gravel could say that you could trust the economy and the budgets to the NDP party.
Mr. Seri, there's one
definitely not going to happen.
There's one objection to the NDP balanced budget. That was the Ontario budget, and we were led by a Liberal at the time. So, you can say whatever you want about the Ontario NDP, but remember, our leader at the time was a Liberal. Don't forget that. That's very important. Mr. Gravel.
Finance Minister. It was Floyd Logren. Was he a Liberal?
Well, we're talking about the Premier. We're talking about the Premier, not Floyd Logren.
Yeah, he was a finance
Floyd
minister.
Logren got his marching orders from the Premier. The Liberal Premier, I might add.
Mr. Gravel, I contend to you that the NDP is not the best fiscal manager.
Just check the website. Check the website.
In previous NDP governments, we've always seen deficit spending.
All you have to do
I really
check
don't
the
think
website.
that you are going to be able to balance the budget based on the promises that you have given to Canadians. So I really struggle with this issue because I really don't think it's possible. Even if you divert present tax sources to other areas, there's still going to have to be either spending cuts or tax increases in order to fund your program.
Mr. McCall, you don't have to believe me. Go to the Finance Canada website. It's there in black light.
I have reviewed your financial portfolio on this issue, and it doesn't make any sense.
Kevin Page, the parliamentary financial officer, is clear, and you've heard the term, the NDP budget's like Swiss cheese. I'm not quite sure, Mr. Gravel, when you say they're independent. When you look at a budget that has, you've promised, you even broke your promise a few weeks ago. You will provide updates every week on costing, and you haven't provided one update on the updates.
Mr. Seri, just pay attention for a minute here. If you're talking about broken promises, I have in front of me here Mr. Trudeau's growth for the middle class. So can you explain to us, on page number 8, spending review, $6.5 billion in cuts. Where are those cuts coming from? healthcare, seniors, veterans. It's right here in black and white. I'm not making it up. It's got Justin's picture on it. It's right there. $6.5 billion in cuts. Doctors, nurses, home care, what's it going to be? Just tell us what it's going to be. That's all I'm asking. Tell us what the cuts are.
You've been in NP long enough, Mr. Gravel, when you talk about doctors and nurses, those are provincial jurisdictions. When you look at that number,
Where do the provinces get their money from?
You should be clear on the numbers. And
I'm very clear. It's right here in black and white.
Not at all. So when you look at that investment, the party has already clarified that document. There will be savings that both the Liberals and the NDP have agreed for corporate loopholes. There's stock options, there's consultation contracts. There are elements in the budget to balance that out.
Mr.
And that is something that you raise 1 point. There is $28 billion that the NDP can account for.
I'm asking you.
$28 billion. So how do you account? How can you approve a Harper budget, and then on the one hand say you're going to balance the book with the Harper numbers that you've criticized for years, and then on the other hand say that you can invest in our jobs,
Mr. Seri,
kids.
can you just explain to the people in the audience here what those $6.5 billion cuts are going to be? I bet you these people are interested in finding out what's going to be cut. What's going to be cut? Just tell us. And I'm not making this up. It's right here on page 8.
There will not be cut. The Liberal Party is the only party that will.
Does anybody want to see this? Anybody want to come up and see this? It's right there.
Mr. Gravel, you can wave pieces of paper in front of people all night long, but they really don't understand where you're coming from.
So it's very important when we go back to
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, the third question, please.
The Home Buyers Plan is a key benefit of the RSP program, which allows Canadians to save for retirement and allows participants to borrow their funds to invest in the down payment of their first home. Since its introduction in 1992, the Home Buyers Plan has helped over 2.7 million Canadians achieve their dream of home ownership. We as realtors believe that the Home Buyers Plan must keep pace with inflation, and we are urging the government to index it at 2,500 increments. This will preserve its purchasing power so that it continues to help make home ownership affordable for first-time home buyers. Candidates, if you're elected, will you lend your support?
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. The candidates will respond to this question, again in random order, starting with Mr. McCall. Your response, please.
Yes, absolutely. The home ownership plan is a really excellent program. It'll benefit lower income families. It will also encourage people to take ownership and have some pride in their households. Apartments and rental units and so on really don't accomplish that. So I'm all in favor of that. And I would extend this further to include like renovations and improvements to houses that consume a lot of energy through leaky windows or doors or roofs and those kinds of things. That would spur contractors and innovators to come in and do financial assessments or should I say energy assessments of the homes. And then they could apply for funds to fix those problems and make our new home buyers feel more comfortable that they're actually contributing to the betterment of our environment.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Mr. Gravel, your response, please.
Thank you. Well, Canadian homeowners are increasingly vulnerable to housing shocks, and young Canadians can't afford to enter the housing market. So we are the only party with a national housing strategy, and we will put that in place when we are elected. We are going to increase our investment in homeless partnerships and social housing agreements, providing incentives for construction of rental houses. But owning a house goes a little bit further than just having good interest rates and and having a housing strategy. It's also about young people who come out of university, might be a couple graduating from university, and they might already have $60,000, $70,000 in debt. So that before they can buy a house, they're going to have to clear their debt, their student debt. It's very difficult to borrow money when you already owe $60,000, $70,000. So we're going to help them by eliminating the interest rate on student debts. That way they will be able to clear their student debts. Then they'll be able to, much faster, then they'll be able to borrow money from the banks or from CMHC and buy a first-time house. And I think that's a great plan. But we got to keep in mind that most young families who graduate from university or college are already in debt. So we have to help them clear their debts first and then help them buy a house.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Sade, your response, please.
Thank you for the question. When we look at the housing market and we look at investments that are created to youth, for jobs, to purchase homes, one of the first things we have to look at, we have to provide them with jobs. The economy has stalled. The economy needs a kickstart. The economy needs the boost. And we need to do it now to get the youth working. Young people want to work. They want to contribute. They want to buy homes. They want to be part of the economy and society immediately. So one of the things that obviously in the housing market, CMHA, we look at other elements, maybe looking at the amortization period from 35 years, 30 years. We need to look at maybe, and there's some stringent requirements. We look at GST levels, making the home more affordable. We're looking at also working with municipalities to see some of the land transfer tax in the province. When we're looking at youth, the Liberal Party made an announcement. When you're looking at debt for students, you're not going to repay your loan until you have employment of more than $25,000. So and we're the only party that's going to be looking at doing that. And that's going to help our youth. But we need to get jobs today. We need to get them up and running and making sure that they contribute, and that way they'll be providing homes for purchasing homes.
Thank you, Mr. Sade. Ms. Lemon, your response, please.
The Conservative government has been investing $2.3 billion annually on affordable housing. Nearly 600,000 households benefited from the social housing support through CMHC, and over 200,000 households have benefited from the investment in affordable housing initiatives since 2011. The government is working with the provinces and territories to develop and implement solutions to housing. Through this affordable housing investment, the federal investment, close to $2 billion, is being provided from 2011 to 2019 to help reduce the number of Canadians in housing need. Under the IH, the province and territories cost match the federal investment, as well as design and deliver affordable housing programs that meet their local housing needs and priorities. Therefore, we do need the cooperation of the provincial governments. Initiatives can include new construction, renovations, shelter allowances, rent supplements, and accommodations for victims of family violence. From April 1st, 2011 to December 31st, 2014, close to 218,000 benefited from this investment in affordable housing and the investment in Nunavut housing.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Thank you, candidates. We will now open the question up for a 5-minute debate amongst the candidates. I will remind you to please respect each other and don't talk over each other, and give each person time to respond. You are invited to question each other, however, and challenge each other's viewpoints. The debate is now open.
Well, like I said a while ago, we are the only party that has a national housing strategy, and that's very important because right now, if you live in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, a young person who just graduates from university cannot afford to buy a home. and I'm sure that they cannot use their RSPs to help them buy a home because they don't have any RSPs. They're just starting out in life. So we have to help them. We'll develop a plan. We'll build some co-op housings. We'll build some low rental housings. And we have a major plan for house construction, and we will follow through with our plan.
Mr. Gravel, it's obvious that the impediment to a young person buying a home is excessive student debt. The Green Party of Canada proposes to limit student debt to $10,000 maximum. And in the future, we hope to be able to offer free tuition to anyone who is seeking post-secondary education in Canada. This will go a long way and remove barriers for first-time homeowners and young families. I think it's a really important issue to look at, and these are just some of the solutions for that. I would also like to suggest to you that we need to give people a hand up. Those people who are homeless, those people who don't necessarily have a shelter over their head or have to make decisions whether to buy food today or not, is very important. And social housing and the expansion of cooperative housing would greatly go forward to bring them, give them a hand up instead of a hand out. So, you know, when individuals get a house over their head, they can make extra money by going out and working part-time or whatever their skills will allow them to do, and thereby save money and eventually move from cooperative housing or social housing into a position where they could actually own their own home.
You're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. We have to build more co-ops and more social housing so that these first-time home buyers can afford to buy a home. I know when I bought my first home, it was tough. It was really tough, and the price of homes in those times, it was a lot less than what it is today. I know that my daughter in Vancouver is looking at buying a home, but she certainly cannot afford what they're paying for houses in Vancouver right now. And I'm sure it's the same way in Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal. You name any big urban center, and housing is very, very expensive. So we have to help the youth, first of all, by helping them with their student loan debt, and then helping them with buying a home.
So we need to provide leadership in this area. We need, as I said earlier, we need to get people up and running, working right now for homeownership. Also, we talked about, and we'll agree with social housing, retirement. Nickel Belt has an aging population. We need retirement facilities now. We need to invest in that today. We need to have the leadership to be able to work immediately with the municipalities and the province to look at their needs, to look at their priorities, and then take that list of priorities for social housing and retirement facilities, and then that's where, with the Liberal Party, we have the plan to put that immediately upon being elected with the largest infrastructure spent in Canadian history. Not in 4 years from now. People need this right now, today. We could spend a lot of time talking, and there has been a lot of talk on this issue over the last 10 years, but the investment is now, and the investment is today, and we need to have the leadership to move this far forward.
There was a lot of talk about this issue when Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin were in power and nothing happened. There's been a lot of talk over the last 10 years with the Harper government, and nothing's happening. On October 20th, with the NDP government, things are going to change. Things are going to happen.
Mr. We'll
be able to afford houses.
To be able to provide that leadership.
Afford houses.
You can't always go back 10, 15 years ago, Mr. We'll. We need to look at moving forward. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. We need to sit down with our partners. We need to sit down with the province, and we need to have a plan.
Mr.
The Liberal Party has a plan to invest immediately. The Liberal Party does not. I'll finish, Mr. Gravel, and then you can go ahead. Thank you. The Liberal Party has a plan. It's balanced. It's costed out. It says we'll have a deficit for the next 3 years, but in return, we're going to have that investment.
I'd like to finish. We're almost done. So I can understand why you don't want to go back in the past. I can understand why you don't want to talk about Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. You don't want to go in the past. You're absolutely right. We will move forward. We will move forward with an NDP government.
Thank you. I just want to give Ms. Laminin 30 seconds. She couldn't jump in there, so go ahead and then we'll carry on.
The Liberal Party keeps touting this deficit spending, and maybe for a little while deficit spending would work, but the problem with that is that it never is reduced. It's like a runaway horse. It just keeps increasing every year. And what are we saddling our children and grandchildren with?
Thank you very much, candidates and panelists. We have received a number of questions from the audience, and our panelists will begin posing them to the candidates identified. I will remind the candidates of a 1-minute limit for responding to these questions. Again, the timekeeper will sound the bell at the last 15 seconds of your remaining time period. First question, please. Mr. Camacchio.
Thank you. This question is directed at Stuart McCall. Stuart, if elected, how would you ensure Sudbury's voice is represented strongly at Parliament?
Obviously, it looks to me like we're going to end up with a minority government of some sort. And so I purport to you that the Green Party, with a sufficient number of seats, could hold the balance of power in this next federal Parliament. We can put forward our beliefs and our ideas to amend legislation to make sure that the whichever party is elected has some fiscal responsibility, and also to put forward our policies and principles on making the environment a much better place to live in.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Serre. Why is it so important to address the environment?
Thank you for the question. The environment, climate change, the environment is so important because we need to add environment and jobs are one. We need to act now. The time for green energy to be a leader in the world is today. We've suffered in the last 10 years with a lack of leadership on this, but today we have an opportunity to be a world leader with green energy. We need to be a leader with the environment, and Nickel Belt is in a great position. We have the resource base for over 100 years. We have the forestry, mining. We have the lakes. We have the resources, and most importantly, we have the expertise. We have post-secondary institutions that are the best in the country. We need to link that knowledge that we have with the environment. We need to partner ideas with the Green Party. We need to move forward this file and link it to the economy and jobs. And we could be a leader in that, and we will be a leader, and the Liberal Party is committed to be doing that with the long-standing investments.
Thank you, Mr. Serre. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Next question is for Mr. Gravel. How will you make sure Canada's economy works for women?
Can you repeat that?
How will you make sure that Canada's economy works for women?
Well, first of all, we're going to start by building daycare. Most of the people that are forced to stay at home and take care of the children, the majority of them are women. So with $15 affordable daycare, women can go out and in the workforce and work. As a prime example, is what happened when Quebec went to $12 daycare. I think at the time it was $10 daycare. That created 90,000 jobs for women. So we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it Canada-wide, and our system of daycare is going to be based on the Quebec model, which has proven to be the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
Yes, this question is asked of Aino Laminin. How will you address women's income and employment inequality, particularly women from racialized communities?
From which kind of, from racialized. I'm very conscious of women's issues, of the struggle for many women to get equality in pay. Just on that last point about childcare, it was said that so many women are forced to stay. Honestly, I think a woman should have the right to choose whether she wants to raise her own children or go out to work. I read a study from Sweden just recently that said that not all children thrive in institutional care, and maybe better if they were at home in the safety of their parents and home longer. So that's an aside with that. I know it's, personally for me, it's a struggle, and I see that my daughters have the same issues with not having equality, so I will go to Ottawa if you elect me and do my very best to fight for equality for women in pay scale and social areas.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Mr. McCall, if elected, how would you ensure Sudbury's voice is represented strongly at Parliament?
Sudbury's voice can be expressed very loudly at the Parliament level by exerting our influence as a Green Party to influence and help direct environmental issues. I think most people that live in Sudbury and Nickel Belt really do appreciate the environment. They have a care and a longing for it to stay that way and to be improved. And as a result of that, if we do keep the environment clean and healthy, that will increase tourism. It will put investment into green technologies. People can start to power their homes and other areas with that.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Next question is for Mr. Seri. How will you ensure that everyone in Canada has access to quality, accessible, and affordable elder care?
Thank you for the question. As we've discussed earlier, across Canada and also Nickel Belt, we have an aging population. Personally, I have parents. I understand that the elderly care is a very important component of what we have to do to take care of people that have been our cornerstone for so many years. The Liberal Party has been clear. One is we're going to look at the guaranteed income supplement, increasing it by 10%. We're going to provide a seniors index. We're the only party to do that. We're going to look at compassionate care for individuals that are on employment insurance and want to take care of chronically ill family members. When we look at those investments that we talked about earlier in social housing, in retirement facilities, the other part that we have to make sure is the National Healthcare Act that is due now in 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Seri. We do appreciate that you could all speak for many more minutes than a minute and a half. However, in respect of time and all these wonderful people that have come, they have many questions to ask you, so we'll carry on. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
The question is for Mr. Gravel. Hunting and fishing is an important activity in Nickel Belt. Your party has flip-flopped on its position regarding the gun registry. Can you please clarify the NDP's position regarding the gun registry?
I can definitely clarify it for you and anybody else. Tom Mulcair has been very, very clear. We will not bring back the gun registry. We will not bring back the gun registry. At one of our previous debates, the Liberal candidate was talking about gun control. I wonder what he means by gun control. Is it another C-68? I'd like him to explain that to us. But I can guarantee you under an NDP government, the gun registry is not coming back. I don't know how much clearer I can make myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Ms. Lamanin, our federal our federal debt is over $600 billion. How can a government allow this to happen, and what would you do to change it?
I believe that was inherited from the previous liberal governments. I think that just happens when you spend more than you take in. And I know, being a co-owner of a small business, we were very careful with our numbers and our dollars. And for some reason, governments kind of forget that you just can't spend and borrow, because the cost of borrowing, I know it's low right now, but interest rates are probably not going to be low forever. So I think that Mr. Harper is the best one to pay down the debt, to manage our finances well, carefully, prudently, and start paying down the debt.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Ms. McDonald, your next question, please.
Mr. McCall, how does it benefit Sudbury to move the Ring of Fire refinery to Sault Ste. Marie or Thunder Bay?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How does it benefit Sudbury to move the Ring of Fire refinery to Sault Ste. Marie or Thunder Bay?
Well, it definitely benefits Sudbury, because we are world renowned for our innovative technology. We have a very, very solid mining supply companies in Nickel Belt. And combined with that, we can use the technology. I mean, Glencore, for instance, has a very, very great research and development facility. I'm sure Vale has it as well. So we can call on those people to help with the development of the Ring of Fire and provide jobs for our mining supply industry here in Sudbury and Nickel Belt. And also, this will open up opportunities for our youth to reduce youth unemployment, which is extremely high. So I can see lots of benefits for Sudbury and Nickel Belt. It doesn't necessarily mean that a refinery should be located, or a refining facility, smelter, should be located in Cape-Breton. But nonetheless, I think there's lots of benefits for the development of the Ring of Fire for Sudbury and Nickel Belt.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
For Mr. Serret, the switch to a voluntary household survey has resulted in the loss of comparable longitudinal, long-form data that seriously impairs our ability to track labor market changes and measure the effectiveness of our economic policies. Will you commit to reinstating the mandatory long-form census?
100% yes. This is very important to do. We've lost data. We're not collecting data. The current government has muzzled scientists, has looked at the public service as not being important. And our public service workers, and part of Stats Canada, long-form census data, very important to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Serret.
In 2011, Ontario's contributed over $20 billion more to the EI program than they received. Will you commit to fixing the EI system?
I'm not aware of all the intricacies of the EI program, but if that is in fact the case, I will work to correct that in Ottawa when I'm elected.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
The question is for Mr. Gravel. What is your personal statement to Sudbury business?
My personal statement to Sudbury businesses is that we will reduce your income tax from 11% to 9%. I'm sure you're well aware, being a member of the Chamber of Commerce, that there are over 8,000 small and medium businesses here in Sudbury. So if we can reduce the income tax from 11 to 9%, that's a 20% decrease in income taxes. And you can, the companies could invest this money any way they want. They can hire more, they can innovate their company. It's a way of getting small business to hire more people. I'm sure you know that the real business, the real job creator in Northern Ontario, right across Canada, is the small business owner. I mean, if every small business owner who gets this 20% hired one extra worker, that's almost 8,000 more people in Sudbury working.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Mr. Serre, what is your position on restoring door-to-door delivery and stopping the closure of post offices?
So the Liberal Party has been clear that upon election, we're going to stop the closures of the Canada Post. That is clear. We have to stop. The other part is we have to look at setting up with the unions. We have to look at seniors. We have to look at the disability groups to see if there is a way to revamp Canada Post. So the moratorium will be set immediately in place for no more closures, and then we're going to sit down responsibly and look. Every business has to sit down and reinvent, look at different ways of delivering services, and Canada Post is no different than any other Crown Corporation or any other businesses that you have here today. It's important that we as Canadians, this is a valuable institution, Canada Post. We cherish, but we are also not knowing as much as we did in the past, and businesses need it.
Thank you, Mr. Serre. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, you got cut off in your intro. Could you please clarify what in the last 4 years you as an MP have done for the riding?
Certainly, I would love to. Well, first of all, I've held many roundtables in Ottawa and across the country, roundtables on mining, farming, the national dementia strategy, foreign investment, and one on suicide prevention right here at Cambridge College. I have advocated for many businesses in Sudbury. I've written letters to ministers concerning Maley Drive extension, funding for a long-term care facility and housing in Capriol, the Killarney Wharf Facility project where everybody goes to get a really good fish and chip, and infrastructure funding for municipality of French River. I've also brought in a lot of money for student jobs during the summer, and when I call the municipalities around the region and the business owners about the students that the money that they're getting to hire students, they're really, really happy to hear me.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
Yes, the question is directed to Aino Laminen. Now that the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, or TPP, has been signed, what do you plan to do to protect workers of Crown corporations, i.e. the CBC, Canada Post, etc.?
I'm not aware that the Crown corporations are a part of this program. Its program is to help business and increase our exports. and open markets. Maybe markets for arts programs worldwide. It's possible. I honestly don't know enough about arts programs as to the TPP, so I'll have to research that.
Thank you, Ms. Laminin. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, if elected, what actions would you take to ensure that the federal government commits its 1/3 funding to the Maley Drive extension?
Well, we've already said that we're going to improve infrastructure right across the country. We have a plan to increase investments in sustainability, and this is going to be a plan that goes on from year to year to year. We're going to use our build and repair local infrastructure fund, like roads and bridges, and that would include Maley Drive. If the city wants to if the city decides that Maley Drive is the project that they want to fund, if the province comes up with their 1/3 portion, we will come up with our 1/3 portion guaranteed.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Mr. Siri, what are your plans to improve public services?
As I mentioned earlier, our men and women that have worked for the public service, I was a member of PSAC for a number of years, and we really need to get back to the bargaining table with our unions. First off, the Liberal government will repeal Bill 377 and 525. So that's the first thing that we need to do as a government. Those are bills that are not fair for the public service and are anti-union, and they need to be repealed immediately. The second component, we really need to sit down with one of the best assets that we have here with the public service. We need to listen to what they have to say. We need to listen, and the Liberal Party has been clear on this with Justin Trudeau as a leader, that it's an important asset that we have. We need to negotiate fair settlements, and there are currently collective agreements that are 2 years, a year and a half, that haven't been, some of them 3 years. That's unacceptable for our men and women working in the public service.
Thank you, Mr. Sere. Mr. Camacchio, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, regarding CNCP rail transportation, what is your party and what are you yourself doing to prevent another incident like Gogama?
Well, we have to, CP and CN started to degenerate. I guess their infrastructure started to degenerate when they were allowed to self-inspect. And that's a proven fact that it doesn't work. Big companies who self-inspect in the direction of profits. I've been up to Gogama 3 or 4 times now to visit the derailment site. That was the second derailment site in Gogama. If CN had spent as much money on maintenance as they are spending right now on cleaning up that site, that accident would never have happened. But the worst thing about it is that this is not costing CP anything or CN anything. It's the insurance company that's paying for this cleanup. And what happens when the insurance companies pay out large sums for cleanups? Our insurance premiums go up. So at the end of the day, we're paying for that.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Ms. Laminin, what is your position on protecting religious freedoms in Canada?
Our Constitution guarantees protection of religious freedom. I stand behind that, absolutely. Can you clarify more? That's the question?
That's all the question says. So maybe in specifics regards to the hijab.
Hijab.
Religious headpiece.
Niqab?
Niqab, sorry.
Niqab. Well, the Conservative government has indicated that when a new immigrant is swearing in the ceremony to become a citizen, they are to reveal their face. I think most Canadians probably agree with that, and that's not restricting religious citizenship. Swearing in is not a religious event, so I think that we can back that up.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, when will the NDP pay back to the Canadian taxpayers the money spent on satellite offices?
Oh, that's a good question. We are actually going to court on this. We have asked the former Attorney General to send this to court as quickly as possible, and he has continuously refused because he just wants to make this an issue, and it's not an issue. But I think we don't owe that much money for or there's not that much money in dispute, but there's a lot of other money that is owed to Canadians. Don't get me wrong, we want to go to court on this issue, but the government is refusing to take us to court. And when we go to court, we will prove that their allegations are wrong. We did everything that we were supposed to do. We did everything according to what the Speaker told us. So if we did everything right, or if we did anything wrong, why is the government refusing to take us to court?
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Camarcio, next question, please.
Mr. Serrin, your infrastructure investment does not begin to meet the needs of the Ring of Fire, let alone other needs. How do you explain this?
The Ring of Fire, as we talked about, the infrastructure spent just to get the roads and infrastructure is a partnership with the province and the federal government. It won't be done alone with the federal government, or it won't be done alone with the provincial government. There will be the important part of the Ring of Fire is having the leadership to sit down and look at the overall plan. You've got to look at the needs to build the infrastructure roads. You need to look at the facilities itself. You need to attract the private sector. You need to bring them to the table.
But I can only suspect. Stephen Harper likes it, we don't like it. Because he's proven in the past that he cannot be trusted. He's proven it over and over and over again. The rumors that we've been hearing about the TPP is it's going to affect our family farms, and it's going to affect our auto industry. If it is such a good thing for Canada and Canadian workers, why is it such a secret? What's he hiding? Just tell us what's in it, and then we can decide whether we support it or not. But I can guarantee you, it's not going to be good because he likes it.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, given that Stephen Lewis and many other prominent NDP members have signed the LEAP manifesto, which calls for the closure of our local industries, how do you justify a position which will put local jobs in jeopardy and is in direct conflict with your previous statements?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Given that Stephen Lewis and many other prominent NDP members have signed the LEAP manifesto, which calls for the closure of our local industries, how do you justify a position which will put local jobs in jeopardy and is direct conflict with your previous statements?
The manifesto that you're talking about was not only signed by NDP members, but there were some prominent Liberals and Conservatives that signed that manifesto, and I certainly don't agree with that manifesto. We want to develop jobs here in Northern Ontario. We want to develop sustainable mining jobs, and we're going to do that by investing in the Ring of Fire, and we're going to invest in infrastructure within the municipalities. We're going to create hundreds and thousands of jobs right here in Northern Ontario. If they want to sign a manifesto, we're not bound by that manifesto. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Kamakio, next question, please.
Mrs. Lemonin, why has the dress of a Muslim woman become an election issue?
Well, apparently this is a much bigger issue in Quebec than in the rest of Canada, and I don't see it being an issue in Nickel Belt. We have freedom to dress as we wish. Only when it comes to legal situations such as swearing in a citizen, that's the only time that it would be an issue, because I guess the woman needs to be identified. How do we know who it is?
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Mr. Serre, if elected, how will you promote immigration to Northern Ontario?
Well, immigration has been the foundation of Canada. Also, immigration has been very, very important in Nickel Belt and Sudbury. We have to go just to here downtown Sudbury for the flags of nations and see how important that has been to our community, to our economy, and we need to increase immigration here in Northern Ontario, in Nickel Belt and Sudbury. It's important to do. With that, we attract investment, we attract new skill levels, and we attract diversity. And that's what Canadians are all about. And it's important for us. You know, my dad's family was 16 kids. My mom was 15. That's not the case today. So we need to, with an aging population, with the population decreasing, we need to attract and we need to increase immigration here immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Serre. Ms. McDonald, next question, please.
Ms. Laminin, how much of the budget will you put towards social service and accessibility?
You know what, that figure must be in here somewhere. We have programs, just give me a sec. Social services. For example, investment in affordable housing in Ontario, as of August 11, 2014, the government had put in $401 million. I don't know the, I can't find those. Seniors have been, tax-free savings accounts have been offered for several years now. They particularly help millions of seniors. Income splitting is another benefit. Increases to the GIC benefits are helping Canada's most vulnerable seniors. And the age credit and the pension income credit are providing significant tax relief to eligible seniors.
Mr. Kamakio, next question, please.
Mr. Serre, the Liberal leader has stated that no person can be in his party unless they are pro-choice. What will you do to assure Canadians that the government will stop spending megadollars on abortion and acknowledge the preborn as citizens?
So Very important question, and the Supreme Court was very clear 24 years ago on the woman's right to choose, and I support the woman's right to choose. It's obviously an important issue, and what we need to do, and I strongly believe, and that hasn't happened over the last few years, we need to invest in education to provide youth, moms, dads, families with alternatives. We need to provide them with education so they can make that choice. So how can we invest in knowledge, education, so that the individuals have options in front of them, from adoption and other means. But at the end of the day, after all that education is done, the woman has a right to choose.
Thank you, Mr. Sere. Mr. McNamara, next question, please.
Mr. Gravel, how will you support a comprehensive response to violence against Indigenous women and girls, including an inquiry and action plan?
Well, our leader has made it quite clear that within 100 days of being elected to government, there will be an inquiry on the missing Aboriginal women. That's something that we've been asking for a long time, and it's just been going to deaf ears. Can you imagine if all of the missing Aboriginal women were white women? I think we would have had an inquiry a long time ago. And this inquiry is overdue, it's needed, it's necessary, and it will happen under a Tom Mulcair-led NDP government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Ms. McDonald?
Mr. Seri, you say the NDP will cut billions on public services, yet your party must cut $6.5 billion in order to meet your promises. Today it became obvious that $2 billion of this would come from health care. Where does the other $4 billion come from?
Thank you for the question. The figure of $6.5 billion that my NDP friend keeps referring to is costed out over a long period of time. So when you look at the numbers, it's $3 billion. The NDP and the Liberals have already indicated in both of the platforms, as I said earlier, there's savings to be done over a period of a large budget as the federal government has for contracting out. They've got consulting services, there is stock options that are indicated. All of these measures, there will be savings found in a budget. And the Liberal Party has that piece and is committed to making sure that it will balance the budget with those elements. Clearly that number on a large scale, and we do have the details to provide all of the various options, and it will be balanced. You could trust the Liberal government, you could trust Justin Trudeau to balance the books.
Thank you, Mr. Sere. Mr. Camacchio, the question.
This audience question is for Mr. Gravel. During your 2 terms, you have put forward one bill. It was defeated 140 to 139. Initially, you blamed the Conservatives since 140 of their members voted against your bill. You posted on Facebook your anger at the Conservatives. You blamed them in the media. Now with the Liberals challenging your seat, you put the blame only on the Liberals because one of their candidates did not vote. Aren't you playing party politics on a bill that you put forth to honor your father?
I don't recall ever blaming the Conservative Party because I had enough Conservative members to pass this bill. I was very diligent in getting the number of Conservatives needed to support this bill. The reason why this bill didn't pass is because one Liberal forgot to vote. Now, I can't understand how you can forget to vote on such an important bill when you have people sitting to your right standing up to vote, people behind you standing up to vote, people in front of you standing up to vote, and people to your left standing up to vote. How can you say you forgot to vote? With that one vote, we would now have a national dementia strategy, and we would be able to help hundreds of thousands of Canadians live a better life under this national strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. McNamara, do you have one more question?
Yes, this one's for Mr. Serre. How will you promote women's leadership and empowerment as part of a strategy to grow Canada's economy?
Women in the Canadian economy still make 22% less than men. The Liberal Party has been strong to have great Liberal candidates that are women. The Liberal Party has committed to having 50% of the Supreme Court judges being women. The only party to do that. When we look at business, when we look at education, when we look at the economy, there's no doubt that all of the measures that we're trying to put in place, from social housing to infrastructure spends, to look at that investment, that is so crucial to ensuring that we have a family available and we have women part of the workforce. And by having women part of the workforce, we are going to reduce the gap of the pay equity, and we're going to look at new ideas and innovation in the economy, and that's clearly what's been happening.
Thank you, Mr. Serre. And the final question, Ms. McDonald?
Mr. Gravel, what will you do for seniors and for our aging population?
Well, seniors are the majority of Canadians right now. We surpassed the 14 and under just last week. So we will invest $1.8 billion over 4 years to help the provinces improve care for seniors. It is very, very important to help seniors. We're going to expand a comprehensive home care service to 41,000 seniors. You know, if we take care of our seniors and if we allow them to live in their homes longer, it reduces cost. It reduces cost to the health care budget. Seniors are better off at home than they are in a long-term care facility or in a hospital. We have to keep our seniors at home, and we will give $30 million for palliative care and innovation so we can keep our seniors at home longer.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel, and thank you to all the candidates for answering this wonderful group of questions that have come from this wonderful audience. So thank you very much, audience, for your participation this evening. We will now hear the closing remarks from each of the candidates in reverse alphabetical order. You will have 4 minutes this time to give your final remarks. Mr. Serre, your remarks, please.
Thank you for being here tonight. I'm ready. Justin Trudeau is ready. In our 40s, it's an excellent age to lead. I have the passion, the energy, the drive, the knowledge to lead a new economy here in Nickel Belt. I'm proud to have had a diverse career that has seen results, growth in the for-profit sector and the public sector. I've also had political experience. I'm proud to have administered budgets, forecasts, and hiring staff since I'm 27 years old. I'm proud to have had a family telecommunication business. Today I'm managing budgets of over $25 million, installing fiber optics across Northern Ontario and Ontario. Innovation has always followed me. I was one of the first in Sudbury in 1999 to install fiber optics. We did this, and Jim Gordon would remember, with SureNet, a partner of Lawrence University, which has now become Sudbury Hydro in Angeles. I was the first to set up a province-wide video conferencing network for hard of hearing and deaf people, 27 locations. I've partnered with the University of Toronto, Ryerson, Marshall Dimes, submitted applications to FedNor, Trillium. I'm an active member of 12 Chamber of Commerces across Ontario. I travel this province, I love this province, and I attend and consult. I want to take a new direction for Nickel Belt. I know how to bring people together. They call me at work Mr. Partnership. I am committed to bringing high-speed internet and cell services as an essential services across Canada and in Nickel Belt. Schools, community health centers, tourism, small business need that desperately to grow as a community. I will utilize my knowledge and my expertise to bring Nickel Belt issues to Ottawa. We need a new economy for innovation, technology, and research. We have the best post-secondary institutions here in the country, and we need to bridge that gap between the research, the institutions, and government and the private sector. As your MP, I will commit to making that happen. I will commit to providing real consultations with community partners twice a year to develop business plans, to look at specific investments. I ask my Conservative friends, I know Ms. Lanneman, it's a great person, courageous, but today in Nickel Belt, we have two-way race, and I ask my Conservative friends to look at the alternative, an NDP member or a Liberal government that will member with business experience that will fight for you and create jobs here in Nickel Belt. A Conservative vote in Nickel Belt is a spoiled ballot. You need to look at that seriously. I prefer, and on the last point, yes, there's been consultations in the community, but it's important that we have real consultation, roundtables with the private sector, with municipal leaders to develop business plans, and we look at attracting funding. If you look at FedNor funding across Northern Ontario, Nickel Belt is one of the lowest ridings in Northern Ontario to receive funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sere. Mr. McCall, your closing remarks, please.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who helped organize this debate. It's been a lot of fun from my side, which is cool. Listening to the debate, it would be sad to have Claude, Mark, or Ino represent me in Parliament. But to tell the truth here, wouldn't you rather have me? Wouldn't you rather send a message to Ottawa that Nickel Belt wants real action on climate change, food security, and railway safety? Wouldn't you like to have real change? Canada needs to invest heavily in the emerging green economy. The Green Party intends to do this. This is clearly the way forward for the economy of the 21st century. All economic projections and plans and so on are based on the information that we have on fossil fuels and the dependency that we have on that. I clearly state that we embrace the new emerging economy and we will have horrendous economic success for Canada. Investments in the forms of interest-free loans and the unmuzzling of our scientists will bolster our manufacturing sector, agricultural sector, and rail transportation systems by providing many new good-paying jobs for our youth and our skilled craftsmen. It will also help Canada become the go-to country for green technology advancements in solar power, wind, geothermal, fuel cell, and wave energy. That's real change. That's pointing the direction and the way we have to go. It's time that we become a much more passionate society and embrace each other's skills, talents, and knowledge, and work together to make Canada even better than the best country in the world. On October the 19th, please consider voting for the Green Party of Canada. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Ms. Lemon, your closing remarks.
While no government or leader is perfect, today we are living better, freer, and safer than most other countries. Since the recession of 2008, 1.2 million net new jobs have been created. The corporate tax rate is at 15.5%. The personal income tax rate is at the lowest in 50 years. The Conservatives have cut the GST by 2%. If elected, the NDP say they will kill the TPP agreement. This has potential negative job implications for Nickel Belt. The Liberals will hike payroll taxes, which means $1,000 cost per average worker. This translates to a $2 billion tax increase for businesses. That the new Trans-Pacific Partnership will protect and create jobs and grow our economy by expanding trade in a market of 800 million customers across 11 countries. This means more good jobs for Ontario and a stronger economy because it removes tariffs and other trade barriers on key Ontario exports. It does not spell the end of Canada's supply management system. The TPP has fully protected the three pillars of Canada's supply management system, which will remain intact. And export opportunities have been created for Canadian dairy, poultry, and egg producers across the TPP region. Barriers for business must be lowered if we are to ensure our place in an uncertain and fragile global economy. Amid this economic turmoil, your choice in Nickel Belt has real consequences. The wrong government decision on taxes, spending, or deficits will upset our fragile economy, causing business closures, downsizing, and job losses in our community. The economy has to be our number one priority. The Liberal strategy for manufacturing is to give up on it, telling the workers they want to abandon manufacturing-based employment as a driver in the economy. This will put 1.6 million Canadians at risk. Mr. Mulcair and the NDP are committed to massive tax hikes and will make it unaffordable for Canadian manufacturers to operate and drive Canadian manufacturing jobs out of the country. The Conservative government has been focused on lowering taxes and balancing the budget. You will choose the most proven leadership for Canada when you cast a ballot for us. If elected to represent you in Nickel Belt, I will work hard to collaborate with all levels of government and all parties to work together to a solution to Nickel Belt issues. I will meet regularly with my constituents because your issues will be my issues. The Conservatives have delivered on 106 of 107 promises made to electors. I personally promise to take your concerns and issues to Ottawa. So on October 19th, I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Mr. Gravel, your closing remarks, please.
Merci beaucoup. Ça me fait tellement plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui parmi vous dans ma ville natale et j'aimerais remercier la Chambre de commerce de la grande ville de Sudbury pour avoir fait ce débat ici aujourd'hui possible. Merci beaucoup. Quand je fais de la porte-à-porte, n'importe où de ce que je vais, les Canadiens et les Canadiennes me disent la même chose. C'est le temps de changer de gouvernement. Avoir un vrai gouvernement, un gouvernement NPD qui va travailler pour tout le monde. Friends, this election is about changing how we govern. For too long, we've replaced one Liberal government mired in corruption and scandal with a Conservative government that is mired in scandals and corruption. It's about time you had a government that delivered what it promised. The Liberal platform speaks for itself. You only have to dig a bit to see that Justin Trudeau is planning a $6.5 billion cut in spending. He's calling it a spending review. Ask yourself, What do you think these cuts will be? Where will they come from? Healthcare? Is it going to be healthcare? Is it going to be education? Is it going to be seniors care? How about more cuts to the public services? And what's more, Justin Trudeau plans to go along with Stephen Harper's cut to healthcare to a tune of $2 billion in the first 4 years. The truth is, Liberals are their own worst enemy. Their action speaks volume about why they shouldn't be trusted. I ask you to support the NDP. Tom Mulcair has announced a $5.4 billion investment in the future of healthcare with no cuts. We will support small business tax cuts and invest in programs Canadians need. Friends, we are just one election away from making history and bringing real change to Ottawa. On October 19th, I ask for your support. With your help, you and I can be part of that change, because I want to continue to serve you to the very best of my abilities. With your help, you and I can be part of that change, because I want to continue to serve you to the very best of my abilities. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. And thank you very much to all the candidates. In closing, I would like to thank the candidates for their participation tonight and your candid response to the issues that have been raised this evening. I would also like to wish my personal best of luck to all of you in the upcoming election and encourage everyone here to make sure your vote is heard and to send the word around that everybody's vote needs to be in on October 19th. We cannot make change or implement our own needs in Nickel Belt and Sudbury without having votes. So please get out and vote. It's so important to us and our future. A special thank you to our panelists, Paul Carmacchio, Michael McNamara, and Carolyn McDonald. I would also like to show out a big thank you to your chamber staff. Without their help, this would not take place in all the other events that we have. You heard I spoke of Lauren and Julie earlier, but we also have Pam, John, Joyce, and of course our President and CEO, Debbie Nicholson. And you know what? We can't sound good unless we have great sound guys, so thanks Mark and Dan for all your help tonight. They're great guys, both of them are. We would like to also thank the Sudbury Real Estate Board for partnering with us in this event, and to Hot 93.5 and Rewind 103.5 for their generous support, and also to Northern Life for live streaming this event. The Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. Again, the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce urges voters of this community to exercise their option on October the 19th. We hope tonight's exercise has helped you in becoming better informed about issues, and that you will keep them in mind when casting your ballot. Thank you again for joining us this evening, and good night.